Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started here. We may have a few more people coming on, and if anybody has a question or comment, you can type that in the webinar chat. I've got my screen share going here. So basically, this webinar is kind of for really anybody in out of home, but I guess mostly account reps might get the most out of it because they're getting creative from their advertisers and helping come up with ideas. And this webinar is all about helping small businesses to think outside the box when it comes to artwork and creative and out of home. Just a few topics we're going to go over today. There's a lot of ads in out of home, and a lot of them are more informative than anything, which is not necessarily bad, but we'll look at some ways that maybe those ads could be better. We'll look at what better ads could do for those advertisers and us as well as media companies or account reps, and how we can help educate those advertisers to see the benefits of more creative ads. So my name is Shane Hutton, and the CEO at Tasty Ad. I've been in out of home for 16 years now. I've worked with a local billboard company as the creative director, and we started Tasty Ad about 8 years ago to kind of fill a void where artwork was needed kind of in abundance and quickly, and that was basically because a lot of digitals were coming on board and people were transitioning from static to digital. So we started Tasty Ad to kind of fill a creative need in that sense. And I've got Mendy with me today. She's the vice president of creative at Lamar, and she's got some great insight about how they handle creative that she's going to share with you guys. So these are our topics, and I'll also share this slideshow with everybody once the webinar is over, and we'll have a video as well if you would like to watch it at a later date. So the current state of out of home creative is basically there's a lot of billboards, 355,000 static, 16,000 digital billboards, and with all those combined, about 4.5 million billboard ads live right now. So it's a lot of billboard ads. Not only that, billboard advertising out of home is growing and expected to grow 10% up to 2030. There's always new technological advancements coming on. We've got dynamic capabilities and programmatic and et cetera. So advertisers, I believe, are really continuing to see the benefits of out of home, which is great for our industry. So I mentioned most ads are informative, and what I mean by that is a first-time billboard advertiser, they don't really know what to advertise on the billboard. So oftentimes they'll give you a list of services and different things that they do, maybe some photos, but they try to get as much on there as they can simply because they're really not sure how to focus on one thing. So they tend to just give as many details as they can, and that often leads to maybe a billboard ad with a little too much information. So oftentimes, an opportunity is lost for them to do something a little more creative and have more of an impact. These are some examples of, I'm not going to say bad ads, but maybe a little too informative than they should be. And we see a lot of these. Um, and, really, it kind of makes you cringe a little bit if you're in the industry when you see, 30 or 40 words on a billboard. However, um, sometimes the customer is always right. And if they want that many words, there's not a lot you can do. But there is some things you can do um, before they start to maybe help guide them in a better direction. For example, if you had, this is just kind of an example ad, but a missed opportunity would be this pizza shop coming on board. They don't really know what to say on their board, so they give you their hours, address, phone number, website, the typical things that you see. However, if they would maybe think a little more on the creative side, they could come up with something a little bit different and maybe advertise different things during peak hours. So for this example would be, a digital ad that's played during dinner time hours, 4 to 7 o'clock perhaps, and then having different ads. But essentially, the phone number is not really needed, website is not really needed, and the address is not really needed. What's needed is basically something to grab their attention and, at least their name or logo. Another example of that would be um, services listed on this ad, some random clip art, address, website, too much information, but an opportunity was missed and could have been made better if they went with something a little more a little more creative, like the one below it.
That's a great design, Shane.
Thank you. So, what can better creative do for small businesses and media owners, buyers, and consumers as well? Um, Improved recall and relevance, better performance, more return on investment. They would differentiate themselves from their competitors, standing out. And if an advertiser has a more clever ad and better return on investment, obviously they're going to want to continue to use out of home. And when people continue to advertise, there's more demand for billboard space. The viewer or the consumer enjoys the ad more if it's better designed, easier to read, easier to follow. These are some examples of a local advertiser that was nice enough to share their ads with us. And they're always doing kind of funny, silly ads, but they're usually updating maybe once every month or 2 months. And the guy's pretty funny, but he'll just send a silly picture in a headline, and usually they're pretty short. So, but this is just an example of somebody that's willing to think outside the box and do something a little on the funnier side to get their attention instead of just boring insurance and financial ads. This is another customer we do some ads for, and they basically every season will update their billboards, and they generally play on whatever season it is, as you can see from these. The bottom right one was a board that was located at a casino, so they kind of played on the casino theme. I thought this one for the orthodontist was clever because it was when everybody's wearing masks, so the best time to get braces is when nobody can see your face. The boxes ad guys may have seen before, but these are super clever and outside the box. We're not listing our services. There's rarely a call to action other than maybe a logo. So small businesses can join the movement by embracing creative excellence, simplifying and focusing on a single clear message instead of listing, 3 or 4 services they do or the hours, which, people are going to look up on Google anyway. Um, Bold and visually striking graphics, um, dynamic capabilities, which in my opinion could be way more utilized than out of home. Learning from the best. There's a lot of great campaigns out there that you can study and get ideas from as well. A couple of other good looking ads here, one for Coke, and the other was a local billboard company that they put up a new poster in a town called Red Boiling Springs. It's a really small town, and they made it look like an old timey looking billboard. And then they also made this 3D policeman in like a Barney Fife car. So they went with the retro theme all the way, but it's a unique theme and idea, I think. And even the ad itself has got kind of a retro vibe to it. So oftentimes, um, if our advertisers would focus on maybe quality messages and content, um, that will often be more memorable than having, multiple ads or doing out of home, Facebook, all different mediums. If they could stick with a more clever campaign, often that's will be more return than just, blasting something out everywhere. Um, Viewers will retain a message that of a great ad and take action. Billboards need to promote a solution, bring humor, make you think, or convey a sense of urgency. And we already know a lot of people look at billboards, so the more memorable their ads are, the more better they're going to be remembered. Um, Oftentimes, if I see a board with too much information on it, it's almost like a Google listing. But if you see an ad that has so much information, I didn't Google them, so why would I, take action or read everything? I just feel like the ads really need to convince me or make me take action. Uh, they need to be a little more intriguing, I guess, than informative. These are some examples of how um, dynamic ads can be used instead of just your plain digital billboard ads. Uh, we do some dynamic ads, but I think there's plenty of room for a lot more. So we've got wait times are pretty popular. I really think the weather feeds are a great idea. It seems like you don't see a lot of people using them yet. So if it's raining, you advertise rain boots. If it's hot, you can advertise, for an HVAC company, um, sports scores, Instagram, or Facebook followers, and then you have like RSS feeds that can do things like now playing on the radio, things of that nature. And we're going to let Mindy with Lamar. She's going to talk about how Lamar empowers their sales reps to get better creative from their advertisers and how to encourage clients to take risks, think outside the box. And then we'll look at why investing in better creative campaigns pays off. And I also, at the end, wanted to kind of touch on AI a little bit because I know it's kind of a hot button topic right now. It can be used in out of home kind of sparingly, but I wanted to share some of that with you as well. So I'm going to switch Mindy on here. Give me just a second.
Well, while we're swapping that over, thanks everybody for joining, and thank you, Shane, for inviting me. I work for Lamar Advertising, and I've been a designer for them for the last 28 years, so pretty much my whole career. Um, I have been on the design side, and now I'm in the marketing side. But um, I'm kind of an advocate for all of our designers around the country, and then also train our account executives on how to sell great out of home and how to have those conversations that are really hard. We're a big company, but 80% of our clients are local. So these types of examples that Shane was showing, that is generally what our 130 designers across the country are also doing on a daily basis. So that's our same struggles. So let me pull up Shane. I guess I need to just like reshare the same deck, right?
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Get to where we were. All right. You see that?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so one thing whenever we have salespeople come in for sales training, one thing that I mainly try to get across is a lot like Shane was saying, but we just have to try to get them to focus on one thing for out of home. It's not a medium where you can do it all, say it all. You really have to help them, focus and hone in on the one thing that you really want them to remember about the business. So whatever, the biggest thing that you don't want to do is go into it, as if you were like a waitress at Waffle House and say, okay, now what would you like on your billboard? Because if you do that and you start the process like that, then this is going to be the result. They're just going to list thing after thing after thing, and it's not their fault. They just don't understand, how to do great out of home and how to make it legible and all the things. So most importantly, our job at the end of the day is just to help make it effective. We're not trying to be award winning. We want to make it effective because I believe 100% that the creative effectiveness drives renewals. If it is not effective, it's not going to work, and they're going to have no reason to come back month after month. So I do believe that it is worth that time and effort on the front end, really educating them and trying to figure out like what is their main objective. So it's typically what we see is the objective is one of four things. And if they can't if they can't vocalize what their main objective is, then always fall back on this one. Always fall back on no problem. We're just gonna do a pure branding and awareness campaign because that is what out of home is really, really good at. This is a good example to me because it's got, high contrast, it's got an interesting visual, it's got two words, name of the business, and it's an easy to read font. So this would be successful to me. If I was driving past this, just the interesting visual would make me glance up and would make me look. So this is good because the smart marketers know that you don't have to put the phone number and you don't have to put the address because this is how people are going to find TEDs and anything else they need to know about TEDs. We just want this billboard to be that constant reminder when they're out and about, and next time they're craving queso and cheese, they think TEDs. Another common objective that out of home is really, really good at is driving people to a location. So if that's their main goal of why they're using out of home and why they're advertising with us, this is a great way to do it creatively. A lot of times the designers have a tendency to hide that directional across the bottom of the board, which is a common place for it. But if the objective is to drive foot traffic into the business, then it should be front and center. It should be the only thing there because that forces everybody to read it. Everybody on this call just read ahead on left because it's the only thing there. So for this ad, I think it has great hierarchy. It's organized very well to do the job. The visual is always going to attract the eye first. That's what some eye tracking studies have told us. Like the eye is naturally going to go to that visual, and then it's going to go across and read ahead on the left, and then it's going to drop down and see where you can get that chicken. So I do want to encourage everybody on the call, like if you're advertising a restaurant or anything with food, you definitely want to try to use the photography when you can because that is going to evoke an emotion, and we're always trying to evoke some type of emotion with out of home, really with any advertising, but especially for this, we're trying to make people hungry and want to visit that location. Another common objective is to drive people to a website. And I thought this billboard did that really well. And it's because it's the only text on the board. So you don't have all the other things to detract you from the main thing that you are trying to get across and have them remember. And the other reason I think this one probably did a good job is because of the full bleed photography. It's a beautiful image, and that is what would get my attention if I was driving past it. It's just the full bleed image, which makes you look, and then the URL, and that's all they want you to remember. Try to envision this though, like if the designer had put that image in a square on the left side and then filled the right hand side with information, it would not have been as effective. And then lastly, a common thing that people use this for is to promote something specific, like a specific product or a specific service or maybe a limited time promotion. So again, this is just a good example of like they just did that one thing. They didn't try to put the address. They didn't put the special. They did, they just did the one thing. So this is kind of a day in the life of a designer. We tend to start out with pretty good design. I think this one's cute, clever. It's got a cute little copy line, logo, visual, white space. We love negative space. And the beauty of the negative space is, again, like I said a while ago, it is forcing everybody's eye to read the only two words that are there. So that's the beauty of that. But then clients tend to come along and they're like, well, I just need, I really just need my phone number, and I really just need my URL. And even though it is the exact name of the business, they still wanted that URL on there. And then this happens and they start to clutter it up. And before you know it, what they've done is actually create more competition within their own space. So when you look at them side by side, to me, there's my eye is jumping over to the left of the screen. Like it wants to go to the cleaner design. So I think this is good to show a client. We always tell our account executives, like, do one like they asked, like the one on the right. We want them to know that we heard them, we're listening, we understand the request. But we also like to take a few minutes, strip things off, and then also present the design on the left as like the artist recommendation. And sometimes just seeing these side by side does the trick. So this is a line that we use all the time, and this does work. This is a good one to jot down, but when we're struggling, we are showing both of those designs. We say this: we took your design and we optimized it for out of home, and that's a good one. It's a good one. So I was talking about emotion a while ago with that Cane's chicken ad. any type of emotion that you can drive, that you can evoke is a good one. 70% of decision making is emotional. So we just have to draw them in with something. It can be humor, it can be hunger, it can be intrigue. This is an example of that. Like to me, two of these ads do a pretty good job evoking an emotion. Like I kind of want coffee when I see the one on the right for sure. That one's popping out to me because it's very simple. And then I like the way these drinks look on the bottom left, so that is making me crave coffee right now. The other two are not really doing the job to me. Like the one in the bottom right, if I was to dissect this, I would say just by glancing up at it, I don't know what they're selling. This visual, the logo is sort of looks like a fishing hook. The one in the left, it's, kind of cool that it's, you can get to it by boat. I guess this is in Louisiana where I am. But it's not making me like crave coffee. But this one on the right to me does a really good job. I like that iced coffee in the top right. The brand is super visual and popping out, and then so is the directional. So it really tells you like, here's where to get that coffee. Um, Even though I like the one on the bottom left because the visuals are strong, and I'm gonna pick on it a little bit because it's got a 9-digit phone number. And phone numbers, we fight them on a daily basis. Um, they're just not memorable, which is the problem. So, you know, you you're probably not going to be able to retain it. Most of the time when you're driving, you don't have time to take a picture of it unless you're stopped at a red light. So it's just the ability to retain it, which is the problem. But for a coffee shop, I would also argue that, has anybody on this call ever called a coffee shop? Like, probably not. That's the type of business that the directional is good because, yes, you're just going to stop by a coffee shop, but you're never really going to call them unless you're, getting coffee delivered for a big meeting or something. So just try to, be smart with when to use which elements. The good news is that out of home does drive digital engagement. So 46% of people that see a billboard are gonna Google something after. So to me, that's good to tell a client, like, you don't have to put it all on the board because most people are gonna Google after and get all the information that they really need. Oh, we have a question. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see. Did they, can you
It
type
said
your
somebody
question?
raised their said somebody
Yeah,
raised their hand.
yeah. If you don't mind to type your question in the webinar chat, actually, maybe I can unmute you here. Let's see.
Oh, I can do it. Okay, there we go.
Okay, there you
Now
go.
you can talk.
What's the source of that research?
I believe that's a good question. When Shane sends out the information after the call, I can go add that in.
I
Great,
believe
thank
it
you.
was an OAAA. I think I've seen it on an OAAA report, but yeah. we can
Yeah,
look.
I believe it was.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Okay. Another thing that we do to try to convince people out of using phone numbers is we just kind of kick the question back to them and we say, well, when was the last time you wrote down a phone number from a billboard? And most people haven't. I mean, most people don't, they can't. Now, if if the customer pays for a vanity phone number, like our lawyers in town, 888-8888, it is burned in my in my memory. My kids know the phone numbers to the lawyers in town. Like by all means, if they have a vanity phone number that is easy to remember, yes, like let's use it. They work. They're awesome. But just for a regular 9-digit, it's just too hard. So I thought it was interesting that Shane started this talk and he uses the informational to transformative. I use a similar line. I always teach people that we need to swap from being informational to more conceptual, and we're basically saying the same thing. But this is a good example to me. Like this is a one of our clients on the left, and she's a good client, but she demands all of that information on her out of home. And if you really like, we have some tools where we can simulate a drive-by experience, and we put the creative in there for her, and we showed it to her what it would look like driving down the road at 500 feet, at 100 feet, and you really can't read any of it except you can make out the name of her business and her name. So to me, it's like, why? That's the argument. Why even put everything else? What we want people to do is remember, when I need Botox, I call Destin Botox. I go to Dr. Amber, and this is where I get the information. So what we do is like I said, we do that version like she asked for, and then we supply some of those things to show her that we don't think it would be effective. And then we go to, something more high concept that would, to me, make her stand out in the market to do something a little bit more clever, definitely more clean. And we try to convince her that's the way to go. Still working on her though. We haven't won. Still working on her. So those are my slides, Shane.
Okay, thank you. Great slides. And I know speaking on the photos and the visuals, there was another study done somewhere, and it was comparing basically an ad, not just an out of home, but online ads or whatever, ads that had a photograph or some kind of visual element with them were looked at. I don't know if it was twice as more, it was something like that, but the visual will draw your eye. If you've got a billboard with just text and then one with a picture on it, as humans, our eyes are drawn to, pictures of other people or, visuals like that. So the visuals are a very important part here.
Yeah.
Let me go back to share. So I did want to touch on the end of these slides here.